could it be that we're actually moving away from our totality? And indeed, if we think about our dualistic experience and system of life here, indeed we are in wholeness, we move out into separation and back again. So this is a time where I feel that many people have become disillusioned with the experience of a spiritual journey. It's become a very, very crowded path. There's a lot of people on it, which is not a terrible thing. But when it's a very busy path, there's a lot of strategy that gets introduced. There's a lot of camaraderie, yes, and it's wonderful to find community in that. But it also can be quite busy. It can begin to get quite competitive. We can begin to compare ourselves to each other on the path, and it's certainly a very, very well-trodden path. It certainly makes me wonder and ask the question, do we ever really get to the end of it? I know that when I started my experience with channeling and my experience with spiritual inquiry and beginning to look at the world differently, I was quite young, and there was certainly a lot of conjecture and a lot of opinion that somehow I was at the very beginning of my journey, and therefore I hadn't really earned the right to be able to speak about what I was experiencing or speak about different points of view until I'd earned my way along the path, whether that be in terms of sets of experiences or chronological age, I'm not sure, but it was certainly a very strong sense of containment that I felt because there was this path yet to reckon with. So what we're experiencing right now on the planet is we're experiencing what I would call collective compression. And it's a little bit like being stopped on your path. A little bit like we can't go any further. You can't create anything else in the way that you had. Your regular sense of goal or mission is perhaps being hindered through the experiences that are happening at this time on the planet. Perhaps not. But for many of us, there is a sense of constriction. And there is a sense of limitation and containment. And containment's a really important word there. So I liken that to being in a room and being pushed into the corner of the room. And everybody's being pushed into the corner of the room. The room is the map of experience that's available to us in the world. And really what we want in this compression period, we're all being asked to go and sit in the corner for a while, is we want to get back into the room because that's where life is. That's where all the experiences and the opportunities are, and the pathway for our awakening, our pathway for our salvation is through those experiences. And yet what's happening now is that some of us, or many of us, are sort of thinking, well, I don't really want to go back to that room. I've experienced that. I've done that. I'm not sure that it's something I really want to go back to. And so being pushed into the corner of the room is really encouraging us now to reconsider what it is that we think life is about, what it is that we think is available to us, and start to actually push through the walls in that corner. What's on the other side of that room? Is there a bigger map of play? Is there a greater set of experiences that are available to us that we haven't been able to access because we've been so concerned with staying on this path towards enlightenment or consciousness? What would happen if we decided to not play that game anymore? What would happen if we decided to actually get off the path? And this is what I'm inviting you to play with today. If we actually got off that well-worn, well-trodden path, what would that look like? Well, in the beginning, the path going through the muddy fields, let's call it the muddy barren fields, the lay pure barren, there's nothing there for us. We need to stay focused. We need to keep our practices going and be diligent and go towards the light. What would happen if we actually had the courage and we were bold enough to actually get off the path, take our shoes off, and actually get out into the mud? Well, the first thing that will probably happen is people say, well, you've lost it. You've lost your way. There's nothing out there for you. You need to come back to diligence and to practice and to really keep your focus on where you're trying to get to. And yet, it's not until our pathway is blocked that perhaps we might start to look elsewhere. We might look left and right. Because it's not about going forward and back. It's about what else is there, what other parts of the map are available. So the initial people that get off the path and start walking around in the muddy fields, people think that they're a little bit lost, a little bit confused. They'll come back. And yet it's out in the fields. That's where the fertile nature of life is. That's where all the dormant seeds are sitting underneath the soil. And if we can be courageous enough to actually get off the path and move out into those fields, we're actually creating new tracks. We're actually creating with our footprints new pathways for others to follow. And so we're not just moving along this linear, one-directional pathway in life anymore. We're now branching out, and it begins to look a little bit like a tree, or a little bit like the tracks of a delta, actually moving out towards the ocean of consciousness. And that's where I believe we are as a collective at this time. So not necessarily feeling motivated to proceed, not necessarily feeling like there's anything ahead for you, is a wonderful indication for you that perhaps it's time for you to be bold and to be radical and actually get out into the unknown and go and explore and discover what actually happens when you put your feet in the dirt. Other people may just follow you. So those are my thoughts on getting off the path of this day and getting out of 3D and into 5D and getting out of one direction and linear and getting into the totality of what's possible. And I hope that you can spend some time considering that. I know that I'm playing with that today. I'm thinking about what I can do that's a bit radical today. I'm actually out on the balcony instead of in my office, listening to the planes and the cars go by. So thanks for joining me, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon.